It takes 18 months to get a handgun license,
Wow.
and you need to shoot 10 competitions a year to maintain it, but the cops shoot once a year and can carry firearms. Hello, and welcome to episode 39 of Let Them Eat Cake. As always, my name is Jack. My co-hosts are John and Ace. Today, we are talking to Jordan, the founder of A Better Way 2A, an organization whose entire motivation amounts to detoxifying American gun culture and the issues associated with that, as well as much more. We go into Australian guns and a bunch of other stuff around the Second Amendment and the toxic culture. But before that, let's get into some headlines. First story is going to be about Ukraine and America's aid and the potential of it drying up because of Israel, as they would call it, a stalemate on the front lines. So this claim has come from MSNBC. The claim is that America and NATO have hinted to Ukraine that they may have to fall to peace negotiations, basically, because of multiple reasons: running out of soldiers, money, no results. And this is all despite the Russian forces still occupying the country. The claims come from two unnamed sources from MSNBC, claim to be high-ranking officials in the US government. And this is the typical sourcing that corporate press does when they lack three corroborating sources, like you should. According to the report, the talks began due to the European and American officials fearing that the conflict had reached an impassable point, which is what I mentioned before, that they're labeling it a stalemate, among other issues like protests against conscription and America shifting its money to Israel because of the Israeli-Palestine war, obviously. This conclusion was and is ultimately inevitable, I think. This has also caused doubt in the minds of the US Congress because of these lack of return from the money that they've given them. So it seems that they're a little bit more resistive to further aid packages. Zelensky is pretty much the way he's always been, which is there will be no peace until Russia leaves and Ukraine regains all of its illegally annexed territory that has been taken since 2014, up to and including Crimea. Chances are peace talks won't actually happen, but we can pretty much guarantee that the information warfare agents will use this to their advantage. So keep an eye out for this. It could potentially be used.
I was going to say this is partly cope because the U.S. government can't function right now because of how fucking terrible Congress is.
Yeah,
They literally can't.
Definitely has a lot to do with that as well.
They literally tried to pass the fucking aid to Ukraine and Israel and failed.
And Israel.
Yeah, it was a double aid package.
Interesting.
And they failed. They were tied together or something. Because the new speaker is like super fascist. And also, here's what's funny. You know George Santos, right? The like con artist in government. Yeah. So he got like indicted, right?
Yeah.
He didn't get kicked out of the Senate. They didn't get a 2/3 majority. Democrats voted to keep him.
What the fuck?
They like him. He's like everybody's gay best friend, kind of.
No, they're keeping him because it, like the current speaker, they think that it's going to be good for them. The Republicans, they're going to get so fascist that people will naturally come to us. Like they literally kept him in there for like their own gain because it makes the Republicans weaker.
I'm not gonna lie, I kind of like my explanation better.
Speaking of terrible governments, so Pakistan has abruptly declared the forced removal of up to 1.7 million Afghan nationals from their country. This was abruptly declared, like they announced it literally a month ago. Imagine 1.7 million people moving out of somewhere in a month. Technically, it's considered an ethnic cleansing if you put it at the most broad terms. And I just keep saying, like, imagine if Turkey did this to Syrian refugees, because both the diasporas are pretty similar in size. Syria has been more sudden. Afghanistan's happened over a long period. Some of these people have never lived in Afghanistan because there's no, like, if you're born in Pakistan, it doesn't mean you're a citizen there, right? So they haven't even given these people time to even get papers, or they've been straight up refusing them as well. The Pakistani states, literally, they won't answer the phone about it at all. They're just being like closed off and saying they're doing it for welfare and security. So one of the things is that they've pointed out is they're pointing to smuggling, like implying drug smuggling, but this would imply like them getting shorted on like imports from Afghanistan, because they probably import like stuff like pottery, grapes. They probably import a lot of grapes, big one. pottery, stuff like that. And they want to maximize the like taxes and tariffs on that, because like drugs, it's like, yeah, okay, drugs, yeah, it's definitely the drugs that are disrupting your country. The main like reason that other people, like so-called experts, we guess we'd say more like journalists who in the mainstream press who want to just make shit up because they need to flesh out a story, they're saying like it's because the TTP is like really good at bombing stuff. But like to think that they would deport a bunch of Pashtun nationals through TTP territory, right? Like that's just like it's asking to empower both Talibans. And it's clear that the relationship is soured between Pakistan and the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan, which is not recognized by the United States and known as the Taliban, since the American withdrawal in August 2021. About 200,000 Afghans have reportedly already returned. Pakistan's increasing to push deportations. However, the United States have apparently successfully put pressure to stop. Anyone who's awaiting resettlement in the United States is getting a halt, and they're trying to do it with other states, like the UK, for example, is trying to do it. But so far, the United States have only been the ones who have allegedly halted this thing. What did the Taliban say? Okay, so the Haqqani network, the Interior Ministry, the ministry invites the private sector to take action because of the profound humanitarian disaster caused by forced migration of hundreds of thousands of poor and needy. It is the duty of Islam and Afghans to stand up for your fellow countrymen. This is basically, they literally just changed a few words about what they said about the earthquake, where they said, hey, we need you to work harder and somehow generate more money to accommodate 1.7 million people coming into the country now. Like, a lot of people are pointing at that it's really because Pakistan is mad at the Taliban and they're like doing this to like make them unstable. But the Taliban haven't been like, no, stop, we won't take them. They've been all right. Oh, they're like, all right, do it, send them. It's also
Send
winter.
them. Things literally can't get worse.
Yeah, I don't know, it's fucked up.
I do want to point out another thing is too, in a lot of like the Pashtun regions in Pakistan, a lot of like shops and a lot of towns are just like refusing to open up. Like if you go onto the streets of some of these like cities and towns in like Pashtun areas of Pakistan, it's like at like peak hours, like 5 p.m. It is a ghost town.
There's an economic crisis, and that's also something that might be. That's why I'm pointing at like the proper taxes and stuff. Like I think it might be like, because they're like not even being rational about it. Like somebody was just like, hey, if we deport them all, then we can maximize our taxes coming in from Afghanistan to make money. I don't know, dude. Like your guess is as good as mine. It's like one of the stupidest things I've seen a government do. Maybe ever.
Seems like a really long way to get remittances.
I mean, they use the same cop out that every other government does: security and welfare.
Yeah,
it's
but
like, what a joke.
No other government deports all illegals out of their country. 1.7 million deportations. Like, when has that happened? It's probably happened before. Like,
from my
World War
understanding,
II.
haven't like close to 200,000 already crossed the border into Afghanistan?
Yeah, that's what I said. 200,000 have already crossed.
Gotcha.
Just fuel for them. They can at least burn the bodies that die for warmth, I guess. And like, think about this. Like, some of these people are musicians. What job are they gonna do in Afghanistan? What
Poppy farmer.
It's banned under the Taliban, though, Jack.
Play the poppies music.
Speaking about poppies, this region is called the Golden Crescent. Guess why?
Golden Triangle. But
I think, is it?
I think it's Golden Triangle.
Hang on.
I think it should be called the Meth Myriad now, because that's what's making the money these days. It's not really the opium anymore, right?
I just needed to correct something, though, real quick.
Go ahead.
How we were like, is it the Golden Crescent or Golden Triangle? My dumbass. Okay. So the bump should be the Afghanistan and Pakistan is known as the Golden Crescent, and it has a similarity, or it has a relationship to the Golden Triangle, which is the other opium cultivation zone of the world.
We've tried to talk about Myanmar on this show, and it appears that there's like a development that kind of forces us to bring attention to the issue. And so essentially what's gone on over the last week and a half or so is rebel coalitions in Myanmar, and I'm warning you now, the abbreviations in what I'm about to say are off the chain. But consisting of these rebel coalitions, initially consisting of the Tang National Liberation Army, the Myanmar National Democracy Alliance Army, and the Arakan Army. So we've got the TNLA, MNDAA, and the AA, not Alcoholics Anonymous. So they've launched an offensive against the Burmese military junta in the northern Shan state, and they've called this operation Operation 1027, in reference to the operation starting on October 27th. And some other rebel groups, like the People's Defense Forces, the PDF, which is probably one of the most well-known anti-junta rebel group in Myanmar, and the Kachin Independence Army, KIA, and the Burma People's Liberation Army have joined the offensive against these against the junta alongside the AA, the MNDAA, and the TNLA. So the PDF, part of their assistance kind of to this offensive push, is that they've deployed 1,000 drones, most of them likely homemade, against the military junta and these like pro junta militias in northern Shan. So kind of as a result of this fighting, we're talking about like 23,000 people have been forced to flee their homes, according to the UN. The coalition of rebel forces have captured about like a little less than 90 junta outposts in the northern Shan state, but that number, it's hard to get like hard numbers on anything that goes on in Myanmar, but that's kind of what's as close as we get right here. They've also seized 4 towns in the state, and they've killed probably hundreds of junta troops and police officers. And on Thursday, the TNLA captured the Shuili Bridge, which can cut off like this highway between Shan and Kachin state, which is very important because the military junta is trying to mobilize 2,000 troops to kind of move in to reinforce the junta positions that have been overrun in northern Shan. And one way that people thought that they might be able to do this was through using a highway with between Shan and Kachin. Now, it is important to note that this isn't necessarily kind of like a one-off offensive. Granted, it is a very large offensive, and they've made the like anti-junta rebel coalitions have made very significant progress in a small amount of time. However, the junta has kind of, I guess you could say, been exposed in the past as this war has kind of dragged on. A lot of the anti-junta militia groups are not particularly well armed, and yet in a lot of areas just around the country in general, in the past they've been able to make significant gains. Now, not usually in this short period of time, but they've done it nonetheless. So something to keep in mind here is this northern Shan state, it borders China, and China has called for an immediate ceasefire between the fighting parties there. And this is probably because China is concerned about the influx of refugees that could come in through China, which has happened previously when there's fighting along the Burmese-Chinese border. And mortar shells will sometimes, from whichever side is shooting them, will end up on the Chinese side of the border and sometimes injure civilians. The area is also near these pipelines that supply oil and gas to China. So if anything were to happen to those pipelines, it would kind of, it wouldn't be great, right? And there's also a $1 billion railroad that China wants to plan to build in the area as part of the Belt and Road Initiative, although I don't know how likely that is, to be honest, with all this going on. Another thing is that the rebel coalition says that part of this operation is to crack down on like cybercrime in the area, which is mostly run by the junta and junta-aligned militias. Some people, some analysts are saying that this is just kind of them trying to appease to China to maybe gain like some sympathy or support, and that they may not actually be that interested in cracking down on cybercrime, but who knows what their actual intentions are. That area in general in northern Shan is like home to a lot of natural resources and smuggling routes, and the militias could try to control this. The MNDAA, for example, they've kind of got a history in this because uh, they kind of formed in 1989 out of this Chinese-backed communist group in Myanmar, and they were very prominent in the opium trade up until about 2002, when they themselves had kind of launched a kind of like an opium eradication process, so to speak. Now they make all their money off of meth, right? And their leader, who died about a year ago, had been identified by the DEA as like a prime like drug trafficker going back to like 1975. Now, on the other hand, what's interesting is if you look at the Tang National Liberation Army, the TNLA, is they're an ethnic militia, and they actually have a very hard anti-drug stance, right? They have like kind of like these drug rehabilitation programs, which are sometimes criticized as being a bit extreme. They've been very adamant about eradicating opium and like kind of cracking down on drug usage in their territories that they control. They're a lot more organized. That they're kind of like they're kind of more ingrained with Tang civil society, and they're kind of more ingrained by spreading their influence through like taxation and enforcing the law and things of that manner, right?
Is that the ethnic group?
Yeah, the Tang are the ethnic group. The
Okay.
TNLA is kind of like the rebel group that's based around this ethnic group. You're gonna
Okay.
find that outside of the MNDAA and the PDF, basically all of these are ethnic militias. Even the MNDAA has an ethnic sort of
Yeah.
lean to it, but it's not as prominent as some of these other groups.
Are there any
Yep.
Rohingya rebel groups, or are they all being driven out?
So that's kind of where the Arakan army comes in. They're not explicitly a Rohingya like ethnic militia, due to my understanding. They're more so concerned with the Rakhine state, or the Rakhine state. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but it borders Bangladesh, and they're kind of just concerned with everyone in there. And the Rakhine state has a very significant Rohingya population, and as a lot of you know, there was a war in Rakhine state kind of between 2018 and 2020. And that's probably one out of like all the wars that ethnic militias have waged against the Burmese government. That was probably one of the most brutal, right? You're talking like 200,000, probably more than 200,000 displaced. You're looking at about 1,000 people either dead or seriously wounded, 170 of them being children. And then following the war, it was the National League of Democracy, so the government that got overthrown by the junta, decided to slap down. I think it was like the world's longest internet blackout for like 18 months. Ironically, the junta was the one that lifted it on the whole like Rakhine state. So that's part of it as well. You also have the Kachin, who are probably the oldest of all these militia groups. They kind of date back to the 1960s, and explaining their entire history from that point forward would be a little bit hard. But to put it bluntly, they've kind of been fighting the Burmese government for a while now, in whatever form it may have come as. And in 2011, they started fighting the junta again, not the junta, I'm sorry, the Burmese government again, after a 17-year like ceasefire deal just kind of fell through. And that war led to the displacement of about 100,000 people as well. So as you can see here, it's a lot of different groups. I think another important thing to note is like the TNLA, right, is like up until fairly recently, it was kind of seen that the TNLA, because the TNLA had somewhat of a foothold, right, where they conducted almost something similar to like a functioning state. And they kind of had an understanding with the junta when the hostilities broke out following the coup that, like, look, we don't necessarily like you, but we're going to stay out of each other's way. If you stay out of our way, we'll stay out of your way, right? So it's interesting to see now they're part of this like really large scale offensive against the junta, and it's kind of very interesting to see like a lot of these different groups. Like right, if you look at the PDF, we talked about the PDF with Antoine from Modern Insurgent on here, and they're very young. You know, it's a lot of young people in that group. It's a lot of students. They emerged kind of out of like a student protest movement, and I think the other thing that we discussed on that podcast with Antoine was that the junta is particularly old. Like a lot of the junta's leaders are very, very old dudes, which is like, you know, not shocking. But if you look at the videos that are coming out of Myanmar throughout this entire offensive, right? Because usually the videos you see out of Myanmar, it's some kind of like drive-by shooting, and they'll like take a bunch of guns and, you know, they'll run off with it. But what you're seeing now is you're seeing like a lot of like captured Burmese like soldiers, right? And what you're seeing is
That's what I was going to say, is that if
yeah.
they mobilize as much as they do, it's just going to result in a lot of surround and captures. Ethiopia tried to do this with, after they droned the hell out of the Tigrayan militants, they tried to they sent like the Amhara militia, you know, not like actual military. And they would just keep sending them in there, and they would constantly be captured by the Tigrayans. And that's what's going to happen.
The thing is like, and you look at a lot of these guys who are being captured, these are like active duty soldiers and police. They're old. We're talking like guys who look like they're in their 50s. You know, it's kind of weird to see, because it's like if you're out there deploying like 50, 60-year-olds in a battlefield, and it's not like, you know, some commanding officer, it's very interesting. Now, to transition to another topic, John, I'm glad you brought up.
Oh, I just wanted to say real quick, if we're going to finish
Yes.
in Myanmar, I wanted to say two things. This place was so bad that it's the plot of one of the Rambo movies, right? They kind of take more of like a Pol Pot approach than what was actually going on, but still. Secondly, last episode I brought up at the end, I said, oh, real quick, I wanted to mention that we should probably look at Myanmar right now, because there's been a lot of accelerated bombings by the military. It's a real concern about how much air power was going in.
Yeah.
And then like since we've done that episode, maybe 14 days more, look at what's happened since.
And I mean, that is the concern, is that basically, since there's a very good chance that the junta won't even be able to get to this area with troops, is that they're going to increase airstrikes, which, as we know in the past in Myanmar in this conflict, have led to pretty significant civilian casualties. It's not really discriminate, right? So, yeah, I am glad you brought up how in Tigray, when they brought in the Amhara militias and stuff to kind of, I guess, clear out after the drone strikes had happened, because another group that kind of used to be the attack dog for regular military way back in the day, and now they've kind of turned on that military. The Janjaweed, or the Rapid Support Forces.
Oh, they're about to win. They're about to win.
It's what it's looking like, right? So the RSF has made some, I mean, again, kind of like Myanmar, they've made significant gains before, but they are making some really significant gains right now.
Yeah, they control all of Darfur, I think, at this point.
They're getting close. They're getting close to controlling all the major population centers. So they took control of the city of Nyala, which is the capital of South Darfur State and Sudan's second most populated city, on October 25th. And then they took control over the capital of Central Darfur, Zalangay. And now what's happening is that they're advancing on El Geneina, which is the capital of West Darfur. And if some of you are unfamiliar, El Geneina is also where the body of the governor of the West Darfur state was found. And it's pretty much very likely that the RSF was the one that killed him. And you know, West Darfur, and just Darfur in general, but West Darfur in particular, has been the site of a lot of the worst massacres by the RSF in this particular conflict. Obviously, the RSF and the Janjaweed kind of have a very they have a very bad relationship with the Darfur area. But as far as this, historically speaking, but as far as this conflict goes, uh, West Darfur has been the site of some of like the worst massacres against minority populations, sexual abuse or violence and things like that.
Old
We're
habits die
talking,
hard for them, I guess.
yeah. Um, and what's happening now is it appears as though the RSF is going to be advancing on al-Fasher, which is the capital of North Darfur, and if they take that, it's looking like it's looking like it's looking pretty bad because as far as we know, they also control. I mean, so they control the second largest city, right? And then the largest city, Khartoum, the capital, they control like 80% of it. So, they control 80% of the capital city. They control another major city in Omdurman. And then I believe they also control a significant portion of the Kordofan region. And then they control very significant portion of Darfur. Now, from my understanding, the main areas of the Sudanese military control is like the central part of the country and the east. So, and like the major ports that are along that kind of eastern area of control for the Sudanese military. So what happens from here? It's not looking good. I don't know what the plan to end this is, or like if because the RSF, right, traditionally they were kind of like they're a mobility unit, right? That's kind of like their whole thing is like they would fight wars
They
in a
have
very
no
mobile
elites
manner.
backing them inside the country. The political elite don't back them. So that's where we'll see what happens. Like they would have to like rule through military dictatorship, and how long
And
will
that
they
and
be able to do
that's
that?
the thing that I'm kind of like wondering right now is like the whole point of the Janjaweed and like their whole strategy and the RSF strategy for a while was that they were like the mobile units, right? They would like they were very they were able to move in and out of an area very quick and do a lot of damage very quick. And
Well,
now
when
they're
we
trying
when
to
we did our the Janjaweed episode, the thumbnail was Devil's Horsemen, right? Are they not just basically a cavalry unit? Is that not basically what they are?
Yeah, they just have technicals now instead of
Yeah.
horses.
I mean, it makes sense. The Hilux works just as well.
so the question is like can they fight like an entrenched war, right? Where they have to hold on to territory. And I think another important thing to note is that there have been, some peace talks going on, U.S. and Saudi brokered peace talks going on between the two sides in Jeddah, and it's kind of it's not really productive because a lot of the major, first off, all of this was happening as the peace talks were going on, right? And the other thing is like a lot of the major leaders from both sides aren't really engaged in the peace talks. So it's like if you have all these important figures who aren't really interested, then what good is it, So I don't know. It's looking kind of bleak. I mean, like it is as far as like Sudan goes, right? That is arguably like the worst humanitarian crisis in the world right now. The amount of people who are displaced. You're talking about like 7 million people, a lot of people killed. You're talking like disease outbreaks and like IDP camps and stuff, and in the capital and things like that. And it's just, it's not good, man. It's just really not good. It's one of just like the worst situations going on in the world right now. That is largely just ignored. It's just like kind of put
Yeah.
off to the side.
Where are those 7 million people going?
A lot of them. So the 7 million are
Into slavery.
pretty much like
Hmm.
all within Sudan, and
Fucking.
there's about 1 million or 2 million that are outside of Sudan, mostly in Chad though.
Okay.
and some are in Egypt. But the Egyptian border with Sudan is pretty fucking closed off. So people who go to Egypt generally already have a means to go there beforehand, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I gotcha.
It's not like Chad where you can just kind of flee through the border.
People who can afford cars are going to be fine.
Yeah, people who can afford cars, people who have relatives, people who can do stuff like that.
I also wanted to say, in the stream that we'll do with Myanmar, talking about it more in depth, we'll probably be talking to somebody who's been tracking their weapons and stuff, and talk about the 3D printed weapons they've been using when we do that stream.
Yes, those are really popular. Those are really popular with the PDF.
So hopefully we'll do that stream this week.
Are they the FGC-9s?
Stuff like
Some
that.
of them.
Hell yeah.
I think I think even like the cooler aspect of it is how many of their weapons are like handcrafted.
Interesting.
I think that's,
Anything
I
else
think that's
we want?
pretty sick.
Anything else we want to touch on? Oh, did we? I think last time we may have mentioned that Azerbaijan is probably going to take southern Armenia.
Yeah.
Watch out for that. Anything else like that?
Don't you think though that like that would force the EU or the US to intervene?
Yeah, I'm not. I don't want to get too much into it because we've spent enough time on the intro. I'm just saying, maybe watch out for those headlines.
Yeah.
You know, is there anything else like that we want to look at headlines for? The girl who was killed in Iran. There, like, I don't know if protests are going to be starting from there.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It doesn't look like it, and we'll see. You know, obviously with how it plays out with Israel.
Other than that, I'm not sure if there's any other ones going on. I'm sure there is. I'm sure there's stuff in South America.
There's a thing in Guinea, but I'll save that for the Sino Talk intro.
Spoilers.
Spoiler alert.
All right, so here's our episode about guns, where Jack finally gets to talk about Australian gun laws.
We have a weapon more powerful than the British Empire, and that weapon is our refusal to bow to any order but our own, any institution but our own.
Hi, my name is Jordan, and I'm the owner of A Better Way 2A. A Better Way 2A's goal is to improve gun culture. Essentially, what we're trying to do is make it so that the toxicity that has been historically prevalent in gun culture, where gun culture has typically not been as welcoming to people who haven't fit the bill of a straight white man. We're trying to make it so that it's more accepting and open to people of different backgrounds, ethnicities, gender identities, all that jazz.
So you're trying to make guns woke?
Yeah, pretty much. Guns have always been woke. I hate to tell you, but we're trying to bring it back into the mainstream and just make it accessible for everybody, because it's a right that everybody should have. Everybody does have, whether irregardless of how easy it is for them to obtain. But we just want people to feel comfortable enough to be able to exercise that right and do so safely and have fun.
Obviously, I'm using the word woke as a joke, but can you give it, for those that don't know, can you give a history on like a progressive gun culture?
Black Panthers is one of probably the best examples of that. Black Panthers started carrying guns because essentially the cops weren't doing enough to protect black people in their neighborhoods. And on top of that, they were over policing black neighborhoods, and people did not feel safe. So they essentially took up arms to defend their own neighborhoods without the bias and prejudice of the police officers that were doing it before them. And this was not really seen before in the US to such a degree, because we see exactly what happened when that started becoming more prevalent, especially in California when Reagan passed the Mulford Act, as when the Black Panthers showed up at the Capitol armed, which was legal at the time to do. It was only after that he passed the Mulford Act, which explicitly banned people from carrying guns on the Capitol.
Can you talk about the NRA's response to this?
So my history with the NRA is a little foggy, but up until recently, like within the last probably the 94 crime bill or slightly before that, the NRA has co-sponsored some gun control, a lot of gun control. They co-sponsored they supported the NFA back in the day, National Firearms Act, which created NFA items, which made it hard to get machine guns, suppressors, all that fun stuff. And they've only really until recently started putting a foot down and saying, they're not going to budge anymore. They did, however, they did play a part in kind of taking some of the meat out of the original National Firearms Act because they wanted to include pistols in that also. If I'm saying that correctly, and they were able to get the pistols removed from the NFA. But overall, the NRA has never really stuck up for Black people. They've never really been a voice for marginalized communities.
Got a great little thing here from the NRA, why gun control doesn't work. Weird, because it seems to be they're the ones who keep putting it in place. So
yeah, the NRA is definitely interesting. I feel like because they're such a big name, people just automatically assume that they are the ones out there fighting for people's rights. When they are a big they have a lot of money and they have a lot of pull for sure. But
that's the only thing they do.
Yeah, that's really it, unfortunately.
They're more about white guns than anything.
Yeah, or you see they won't, they're big on very rarely do they ever step in and do anything about ARs, assault rifles. You never really hear Wayne LaPierre on TV talking about assault rifles or anything like that. It's you see a lot from organizations like Firearms Policy Coalition and National Association for Gun Rights, things like that, but not a ton from the NRA.
So let's talk about gun control, and this is where we can open up more into a conversational period. So is gun control good or bad?
I would say gun control is bad if I had to pick one or the other. Gun control has historically been able to be circumvented by people who are able to afford to, or people who are able to well, let's go back in time. So gun control, the first iterations of gun control were essentially after we started freeing slaves in this country, and we had freed Black men who were supposedly able to have the same kind of rights as white men in this country. But the white former slave owners in this country didn't like the idea of Black men owning guns, so they would pass laws that forbade Black men from carrying guns in public, which made it significantly more difficult for them to defend themselves when you had bands of racists roaming the countryside trying to lynch them. So if one of them was carrying a gun, they'd be arrested. And if they weren't carrying a gun, they'd be lynched. You had the black codes down south, when in order to purchase a firearm, you would have to have things like a literacy test. Things like this were done intentionally to kind of skirt the requirement that a law couldn't be racist, because by saying, oh, you have to be able to read, you have to be able to check these boxes, you're not necessarily saying that we don't want Black people to own guns. But when the majority of the Black population at that time was unable to fulfill the requirements that they were requesting, it ended up being very restrictive for the Black population. So you've had historically, gun control even after the NFA. The NFA, the reason we have a $200 tax stamp in this country was because the Thompson submachine gun back then cost $200, and they specifically wanted the Thompson submachine gun to be inaccessible by the majority of the people who were using it. Meaning, if you were rich, you could still buy a Thompson machine gun. They just wanted poor people to have to spend the money, which they weren't going to be able to do, in order to buy it. So, whether you want to go the classist route or the racist route, there's plenty of, I hate to use the word here, but ammunition to back up your argument that, there's never been, even now, you can go to the most restrictive state in the country, and if you fulfill the right requirements, you can have an armed guard follow you around and offer you protection. So gun control has never really been about saving lives. It's been about keeping specific demographics from owning guns, and it's not any less true now than it has been in the past.
But Australia banned all the guns and then never had mass shootings ever again.
Yeah, that's it's one of those fun facts. Like the people like to say how firearm homicides went down in '94 after the assault weapons ban and went back up again when it sunsetted. They don't talk about the extraneous information, like the fact that it took Australia 10 years to turn in 600,000 guns when the United States has over 300 million people in this country, and we have enough guns to arm every person aged 0 to 99 3 times. So I forget what the time
stat.
Yeah, it's so funny to me because you know, it's really tough to talk about gun control and to compare the United States to other countries, because the United States is, we're kind of like a bastard stepchild of other countries. We're not, you can't compare the US to any other country. And I don't mean that in a good way or in a bad way. It's just there's not really any other country like us. And the people that have done comparisons like that, you know, there have been, you can compare us to other countries and say like the top 20 world economies. And the countries that we are similar to, one of the countries is South Africa. And as far as population diversity, as far as history of racial violence and conflict, and South Africa also has very strict gun laws, but their firearm murder rate per capita is much higher than ours. People don't look at countries like that. Yeah, I always laugh at the Australia stat, because it's usually meant as a trump card by somebody who doesn't know the definition of what a trump card should be.
They also don't understand that the statistics are actually wrong. So I was gonna ask, how much do you know about the Australian gun laws? Because just like, if we're gonna do this, let's do it properly. How much do you know about the effectiveness, what happened, how fast they implemented it, all of this sort of stuff about Australia? Because everybody I talk to who brings this up has no clue.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna be one of those people, because
Mm,
I know the superficial information about it, and
yeah,
other than the fact that it was, you guys had one mass shooting and implemented a mandatory gun buyback.
yeah.
Um, yeah, that's pretty
So
intense.
yeah, so basically it's a very interesting situation. I kind of looked into it for um my own sort of curiosity's sake. And I found out that the um gun crime had been dropping since 1988 at a consistent rate. 1996 comes around, the shooting happens, not the only mass shooting, by the way. There was about 7 in the, I think, the 10 years prior, and they're about the same in the 10 years post. And there's
Really?
been about the same mass shootings. If you, and this is the thing, right? Australia, um, they manipulate their statistics to hide most mass shootings in domestic violence, and they've also raised the criteria for a mass shooting from 3 dead to 4 and possibly 5. I haven't looked into it recently. So
Really?
they've actually increased the amount required to qualify it for a mass shooting, and then lied about it when it's happened and hit it in domestic violence statistics. So that's super interesting. There was a mass shooting in Darwin in 2019, but that they don't talk about. They
Was
don't
it
even
in,
call it a mass shooting.
because it was in a household or something?
No, this was in public. Guy just got out of jail, killed 3 people across an hour period in Darwin in 2019. Um, Sawn off shotgun, so a gun that you're not meant to be able to get, and nobody talked about it. Nobody cares.
I don't even
It just
remember hearing
happened.
about that.
Yeah, nobody heard about it because nobody spoke about it. The Guardian reported on it once, didn't even call it a mass shooting.
You know what they called it?
They called it a rampage, is what they
Murder
called it.
spree.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
something like that. Yeah. So it's just so that's just one thing, right? This lie that there haven't been mass shootings in Australia is not true. It's just fundamentally false. On a Twitter account that got banned, I did like a full thread about it. There have been shootings, public and domestic, that have killed 3 or more people about 11 times since 1996. So it's not actually an accurate statistic, and anybody who brings it up is instantly, in my mind, dismissed, because it's like, well, if you're bringing this up, you clearly have no idea, nor have you looked at the statistics.
It
There's
is.
also conspiracies that it was like a false flag, which let's not get into that.
Oh, yeah, sure.
But there's
I mean,
always
it is on the list.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's basically 1996. The shooting happens. 12 days is how long it took to implement the gun laws. Have you ever heard a law implemented in 12 days into law in 12
Yeah,
days?
the
No,
Has
partition
that
of
no.
India.
Oh.
does it ever
That
go
went
well?
swimmingly.
No. It never works. Right? These rushed legislations, it never works. They My favorite part about the legislation is shotguns. There are 5 categories of firearms. Shotguns sit in 4 of them.
Really?
Yep. You in Australia to buy a semi-automatic rifle, so like an AR, unrestricted, is in the same category as a lever action shotgun.
Wow. Why?
Good question. I have no idea.
Yeah, it sounds like some of the people who write our gun laws.
It's because it has 7 bullets in the 7 rounds in the
Tube.
magazine.
Wow.
Yeah, that's why. And apparently that's as deadly as an AR.
Yeah.
Because of logic. So yeah, legislation here is fucking stupid.
Yeah. Oh, there you are. Yeah, the Australian gun identification chart.
And also gel blasters, stuff like that, completely illegal.
Yeah, I heard about that. That was
airsoft,
like
completely illegal.
Jack,
that's so crazy to me.
Actually, look at this chart for a minute and actually read the names on it.
I can't read it. Oh, maybe
It's
that's because I don't have my
quality.
glasses on, dummy.
Hang on. Let me zoom in on it.
No, I took my glasses off because it was reflecting the light back into the camera. Oh, that is funny.
This sounds about right. Yeah. Yeah.
I had one of those potato guns as a kid.
Here's the real one that I'm pulling up now, though. They have like this is the one I found when I googled it. So these are D rifles.
Yep.
Whatever that means.
So that's category
so
D
category
rifles.
D. Yeah, category D is so basically A and B is easily owned. So A is
the fucking Browning.
Browning, yeah, the Browning automatic rifle. I love how they call it a Browning bar, semi-automatic centerfire rifle, but
well, that's because they destroyed a lot of these historical firearms in the buyback.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, and see how it says New South Wales Police? Yeah. New South Wales is the worst of it.
Yeah,
New South Wales are the worst. Like if you have a folding stock on a rifle, it's illegal in New South Wales.
Wow. Yeah, because the folding stock makes it more deadly.
Here we go. Perfect. So yeah, category A is like rimfires, so 22s, single shot shotguns, black powder. B is centerfire rounds, but magazine capacity limits, right? C is semi-automatics with under 5 rounds, I think. D is basically unrestricted. And then handguns is in its own. And it takes 18 months to get a handgun license.
Wow.
And you need to shoot 10 competitions a year to maintain it. But the cops shoot once a year and can carry firearms. Does that make sense?
You can't carry a gun with a handgun license in Australia, can you?
Nope.
Just go to the range?
Well, I mean, you can.
Yeah. it doesn't.
But I don't think it'll end well.
That's crazy.
So,
anytime someone brings up Australian gun laws, tell them to shut the fuck up.
I usually do. Well, I'm nicer than that, but
I have this source now. It's gonna paywall me, but I just want to read the headline here. So I'm gonna refresh, right? And Swedish police chief, no international equivalent for Sweden's wave of bombings, right? So bombings in Sweden, 2018, 162 bombings. 2019, 97 bombings. Most of the bombings are associated with criminal gangs.
Are they the grenade areas?
And then there's more. That the grenade attacks are a completely different category. The grenade attacks are even older of a tradition of happening in Sweden, right? So those go back all the way to 1993.
What?
All right.
So when we do this thing where we talk about America and like how these crimes against society with mass shootings are out of the ordinary, it's just bullshit because they happen in like so many, not all countries, but different countries, and they normally happen in strings as well. Like, because as soon as one happens, it inspires the rest.
Exactly.
So it comes down to how do you actually treat crimes against society? Sweden, supposed to be one of those great Nordic countries, you wouldn't think that they would have, that many bombings. And this is something I say all the time: is you ban guns, we're just going to have Oklahoma City bombing stuff again.
Absolutely.
Because that's when assault weapons were banned, bombs rose. So
yeah. And it's not a gun problem, it's a violence problem. And I try to explain that to people who call for gun control is you're not going to get rid of the desire to commit violence by getting rid of a tool used to do so. It's look at France when they had the guy drive a car through a crowd of people. It is so easy
That's
with
one of the. He also had an assault rifle on him too.
yeah.
He didn't even really use it.
No, well, he didn't need to, but
Yeah, because
that
the
was
U-Haul truck is more effective.
it is so ridiculously easy to get a rental car. And I don't want to give anybody any ideas, but it's there's the reason people don't do that is because we have guns in this country. But getting rid of guns, which is impossible to do, would only make way for that to happen. So it's you're giving up one tool for another. It's not going to solve the problem.
So I just found this because I knew I had it saved somewhere. So when I said that since the 80s, firearms deaths were going down, here's the graph.
Yep.
So 95, just before the shooting happened, it was at its lowest point in 15 years.
And that's exactly sorry.
My favorite part is that in 96, the 95 it dropped, right? Significantly because people were understandably paranoid about it, and then went straight back up and continued down on the same path afterwards. So
wow.
The actual act of banning all the firearms in Australia did completely nothing. Absolutely nothing. There was also a breakdown on firearm type used here, right? 80 to 95. Notice this one, the military style. Number of homicides, 27. Shotguns, 326.
326. That's similar to
68 hunting rifles.
Oh, wow.
In homicides, right? Now, how interesting that 63% of homicides were used hunting rifles, and you can still buy those.
Yeah.
But for some reason, we can't buy semi-automatic rifles because 85 people died.
Well, and this is the crazy thing.
Does that make sense?
No, and it's the same thing that people get hyped about here is assault rifles, quote unquote, are used in less than 1% of all firearms homicides a year in this country. And somehow that is what everybody latches onto. It's just something with the way the rifle looks and how it's publicized.
Yeah. Well, it's memetics. It's the media. It's the hype about it. It's the
100%
the kill count. It's gamification of mass murder.
Yeah,
that's what it is. And I blame the media.
That's the first time you've used the word gamification of mass murder. That's a really good term. That you just
have I not said that before?
No, I haven't heard you say gamification before. But that's a new trendy word.
I guess it's because we use the term memetic more, which is a more fun word.
This is one of my favorite graphs. And this is right. This just says rifles. It doesn't necessarily mean military style, but it's 2.6.
Yeah, it's all rifles.
That's why I say anyone who talks about gun control and they don't bring up handguns, they're not somebody who's serious about gun control.
And you notice half the gun deaths in this country are suicides. And how often will you ever hear these?
It's more than half. It's 2/3.
Oh yeah, more than half. But
what do you know? I also have charts for that already pulled up.
John, you're the chart man. I like it. No, that's the thing is if you don't hear somebody talk about suicides, if that's not the first thing they talk about, then they don't care about gun control. They care about the guns.
That jump in homicide
about saving people.
Wild.
Yeah, I mean, well, look at it was the last time it jumped like that was the '94 crime bill.
Yeah.
How interesting.
Yeah, and then 2021 during the lockdown when everyone was forced to stay at home with their spouses.
Well, it's between 16 and 21.
Yeah. But that was the first year of the lockdown had an insane jump.
That's the thing. This is like there's certain stats like we don't have a lot of stuff post-COVID stats because it's going to take a while to like adjust the statistics.
Yeah,
and then also like a lot of stuff with like arms sales and arms trafficking. Since the war in Ukraine started, we have significantly less data as well because so much of the data is being controlled.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Jack, to talk to what you were saying earlier about the trend of gun violence that was going down before their gun buyback, that's a piece of information that people don't often bring up here when they're talking about the '94 crime bill that we had, is that gun deaths were trending downward before the 94 crime bill and were starting to trend upwards again before it sunsetted. But
Mhm.
people just look at the numbers before the bill and after the
Before
bill,
and
and they
after,
say,
yeah.
well, it was so much worse after the bill, even though it was continuing to trend downward and then reached a valley and started going back up again before. And they say, well, clearly after the bill was sunsetted, then crime rose again. But they don't talk about what happened in between those two dates.
No. See if I can find other statistics, because I had a bunch of statistics when I did that thread. Because like I had to track them down, right? I had to track down these instances.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
interesting.
this
I just found a table of violent deaths by firearm from 1915 to 94 in Australia.
oh wow.
The highest number ever recorded was 1988,
What number was that?
395.
That is, I mean, obviously Australia has a fraction of the population
Yeah.
of the US, but um it is interesting. You know, we have, I will say that gun culture in America, you know, we have the any instance where you've got quote unquote more freedom versus less freedom. I hate using that term because it's so subjective, but more ability to make your own decisions or to have agency over your own safety, things like that. I will err on the side of, you know, more rights versus fewer rights.
Mm.
But it is a side effect of having this many I don't think it's the number of guns. I think it has much more to do with like socioeconomic problems in our country than the guns themselves.
Well, that's what I was going to say with the controversial graph I just had up, right?
The
So
imprisonment one?
yeah, but like look at how much the imprisonment was spiking. Like it went
Yeah.
down after the bill, technically, you know, because it doesn't necessarily show that the bill was preventing it. But this is like, I mean, incarceration like getting lower is okay. Like if we can prove the crime bill actually did lower incarceration rates, that's cool, I guess. But then this one is what you were saying about how violent crime was already trending downward. It doesn't get steeper after the crime bill, really.
No,
You know,
it
it's on the
goes in the
same
same
trajectory.
grade.
And
Yeah.
that's literally what happened
Almost
in
like it's
Australia too.
societal, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's what happened in Australia too. Literally coinciding with, and I say this all the time, right? Is basically Australia and America coincided in a downtrend of violent crime. So I found another table here that I'll just share.
Well, and this is another crazy thing is that we live in the safest time period now that we have ever lived in, with the exception of I think 2021. We have the lowest violent crime rate ever in this country, and if you ask people, I think it's something like 68% of Americans believe that to be false
Yeah.
because of
I'm
how
not
much.
surprised at all.
No, and a lot of it's because of how much the media,
Mhm.
the 24-hour news cycle is terrible. You know,
Fear porn.
everyone, it's fear sells,
Mm.
and you know, if it bleeds, it leads. There's
Yeah.
no shortage of people trying to find violence that looks good on television.
No, exactly. So this is an interesting table that I got. So there's multiple killings with the firearm in Australia where it's 2 or more. See what I mean about them changing statistics?
Yeah,
Right? They always change it. So notice 94, 95, 0. And
yep,
then 2 in 96, and that's when the ban came in. There was 5 in 92, 6 in 87. Right? But you see how
yeah,
it was never really a problem. It was like a thing that kind of happened.
yeah.
And yeah, it's unfortunate, but why now? Why there? That's the question I always ask. Why
Why did they decide to do
specifically
it
at that
then?
time? Why
I
did they
mean,
decide?
if it's trending anyway, then they can get credit even if the bill's a total failure.
Yeah, and it was a total failure, and John Howard has continued to harp. And I think, and this is just me speculating, I think that John Howard is the reason the media doesn't talk about the fact that the gun laws have done nothing except for deliver the state control and the monopoly and violence. Like that's about it. Um, I'm not sure whether you saw, but during COVID, they were like full riot gear to shoot at protesters with like rubber
Yeah.
bullets and shit.
Yeah.
Um, Unbelievable.
Dude, it
These
was
people were
really,
just standing around and they just got fired upon for
yeah.
standing there. And then all the idiots on the side of the state are like, oh, why did they leave all their rubbish there? We're getting shot at, you fucking idiots.
It was really crazy
It's
to see that
ridiculous.
happen.
Hey, I know you're dying, but could you clean up a little bit? Could you not bleed all over my carpet? You know,
Dude, Australia had literal internment camps for COVID, and it was so weird as an American who was, you know, I'd like to think I was kind of like in the middle of the road as far as like protective measures went, because I'm a first responder, not a cop. But I'm a firefighter and was working the whole time. So I kind of became quickly desensitized to a lot of the COVID stuff. Only because I was around it so much. We wore masks when we went into people's homes. We wore masks, when we went into the like ambulance and things like that. But by and large, didn't wear masks around each other at work. We did for the first few weeks, and then we just, like I said, just became desensitized to it. But I very much understood, why people were concerned. I understood the precautions that were being taken by individuals on an individual level, and it was. But I felt that I couldn't say, hey, look at how crazy Australia is right now, without people assuming I was like an anti-vaxxer, even though it's like objectively weird, the shit that you guys were having to deal with.
Yeah.
Like absolute, like not China level where people are like scooping your dogs up and killing them, but
Well, you know what's fun about China? We did it first. That policy, Daniel Andrews in Victoria did it first. That whole zero COVID thing, that was an Australian policy. Came
really,
directly from Australia, and it just culminated in the perfect policy that China could use to weld people inside their homes and kill their animals. So yeah, that's
absolutely
kind of
insane.
cool. Let me just find something here.
I think the wildest video that I saw, and I don't mean wild in like a funny and entertaining way, but
Mm,
in a scary that things were getting that bad kind of way out of China, was when people were drone fishing. They were literally using drones to fish out of their apartments for fish because they
yeah.
couldn't leave their apartments to get food. But
It's
yeah,
pretty
no, I mean, to
fucking wild.
circle back towards that, I mean, that's, one of the examples I constantly bring up is when you look at the BLM protests, and you look at the protests where there were armed protesters versus unarmed protesters, and you look at the
Mhm.
discrepancies between the two examples, and look at how law enforcement treated the protesters, and it's vastly different. They were significantly less violent towards, if at all, violent towards there were armed members, and they weren't shooting them with beanbags and rubber bullets, knowing that they could be shot back at. And I think Australia is a perfect example of what happens when nobody is going to be armed for the most part.
Mhm. This was my favorite one. So this was something I did during thing. Basically, they so just for a bit of context here, they had previous issues with remote indigenous communities with COVID, and their solution was to roll in a bunch of RVs and basically give them space to isolate, which is what you should be doing, right? That's a good idea. In Northern Territory, they're like, haha, internment camps for only Aboriginal people. And they force them
Oh no.
into these camps and bust them to the camps, which is not good optics.
Oh
And then
no.
three of the three teenagers who were all negative to COVID, by the way, got
I
out.
heard about this.
And then they shut down Darwin to
Yes.
track these kids down, even though they were negative with COVID. Literally didn't have it. They were searching everybody's car for these kids, and they just wanted to get the fuck out of that prison.
Holy shit.
It was so wild, and
I heard
nobody had
about
a
this.
problem with
They like
this.
jumped a fence, literally.
Nobody,
yeah, because
yeah,
people
literally
are
jumped the fence.
so scared. They can be so scared for their own safety. Imagine going to prison for being sick.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Well, because
that's
this
free.
is the
That's
thing.
freedom, free country.
You're told, I mean, because I understand the thought that people might have about isolating if you're sick, but you're also having to put the trust in the people who have shown historically that they can't be trusted. You're literally saying, okay, I'm going to put my life in the hands of the state and trust that they have my best interests at heart. And if you don't like that idea, then yeah, you're treated like a criminal.
Speaking about criminals, I wanted to talk about this in free countries, because this is also, you see, like this is somebody wrote a paper in response to people blaming the '94 crime bill for the incarceration rate, and it's called "No Reason to Blame the Liberals," saying that the Sentencing Reform Act of 1984, but also even before that, it was going up. So there's
Yep.
been 2 bills that they have used to address it.
To address
Yeah.
what specifically?
The incarceration rate and criminal population, right?
Stop jailing people for weed, you fucks.
Yeah, that's like Trump is ironically
Yeah.
Trump is the one who has probably done something that will actually be good for the criminal justice system.
I know.
Thank God for Kim Kardashian.
Oh my god. 2 sentences I would never think would be
I know,
uttered.
right? No, I give him credit for the First Step Act all the time. It's such a good bill.
Yeah.
It's the only thing he ever did.
I would love more bills like that.
Mm.
And it's just crazy. It came out of like the most like outwardly fascist admin we've had since Andrew Jackson. And that was
Arguably,
before
like,
fascism existed.
dude, it's so funny because it's arguably like if you were to just say like, hey, this guy banned bump stocks and created the First Step Act, you'd be like, oh, that guy's a liberal for sure. Hates
Well, he
guns and
was.
wants to ban people who smoke, or wants to get people out of prison who smoked weed. Absolutely, guy's a Democrat.
And now it's funny because I almost said Ted Cruz again. I keep almost calling him Ted Cruz. DeSantis tries to run to the right of him, so then Trump starts being like, "Well, I need to go even further right." So now he's talking about killing drug dealers, and it's
Oh
like,
my
didn't
God.
you pass the First Step Act? And he's like, yeah, but that was different.
I
Nobody
can't
holds him to
stand
account. It's
identity
so funny,
politics.
even for his successes. And they try to say like, "Oh, liberals don't like the good things he did." Shut the fuck up. First Step Act is based.
Okay, to get back on track, what do you think about stand your ground laws?
Oof. I don't think that it's. I think it's really tough to say. This is where this is one of those times where I try to stay consistent in my values, and it's tough because of the examples that I've seen that want to push me to the contrary. Like I said before, I think having more autonomy is better than having less autonomy, and having the ability to decide for yourself when your life is in danger instead of having to wait for the court to decide before or after the fact whether you're alive or dead, or possibly being scared to use deadly force because you're not sure if it's justified. I would have to say that in the sense that, so Connecticut, I learned within the last probably 2 years, Connecticut actually has stand your ground laws. I'm sorry, it has a castle doctrine, which I didn't think Connecticut had. And I believe that in a perfect world, stand your ground laws would be great, because in a perfect world, everyone would assume somebody else was armed, and only somebody who was truly trying to do something awful and heinous would attack somebody else, which then would justify using deadly force. We don't live in a perfect world, and people are assholes and subjective, and people assume things that aren't true often, and sometimes those assumptions end up with people dead. So something like Connecticut has, where you've got a castle doctrine, which essentially allows you to use deadly force if somebody is breaking into your home, if somebody's in your home. I think something
Most
like
based
that.
American law ever.
Yeah, Yeah, I think something like that is appropriate because I think somebody has to make
A
a
conscious
series
choice to
of
break into your
unreasonable
house.
decisions. Yes, yes,
It's pretty easy to not be an asshole. It's pretty easy to
pretty
not break
easy.
into someone's house,
Yeah,
house,
it's actually
right?
very easy not to break into someone's house. I've never
It's the
fallen into
easiest
somebody's
thing.
house like,
Yeah,
oh
yeah.
shit, I'm breaking
Oh,
into.
no,
Yeah,
I accidentally broke into this house. It doesn't happen, right?
yeah.
It's an actual conscious choice, and if and the other really, really base piece of legislation is the, felony murder.
Which
I think is one of felony murder is one of the most interesting pieces of legislation. So if someone
like you mean
dies while
murder
you're committing a
versus.
felony,
Oh,
um, so yeah, so basically there's a situation where a chick was in a car, two people broke into a house. The guy had taught his mum how to use a gun. The mum used the gun, killed both. Chick in the car got double homicide.
oh,
Based.
yeah,
So
I didn't know that was a thing.
yeah,
How did I not know this?
yeah. So based
Because she was involved with the original crime.
because she was involved in a felony and people died while that felony was being committed, she got
Wow.
hit with a double murder charge.
Why didn't I wow, why didn't I know this? See, I've heard
Mm.
of examples of that in the sense that, somebody was driving and committing reckless driving and killed people and they got charged with murder.
Oh, yeah, no, this is like
Because no,
didn't
that's like
actually do it, but,
yeah,
like, was
disconnected and
involved with a felony and therefore it goes on her,
I get it.
which
Yeah,
is I think is a pretty good deterrence
yeah,
to do
yeah,
crime.
because
Like
and it sucks because there will always be those people, which I understand. There will always be those people who say, you're taking the stance that your belongings are worth more than somebody's life, but it's not the belongings that I'm saying are worth more than this person's life. It's the fact that humans can't read brains, and when
Mm,
somebody's breaking down your door, you don't know if they just want your TV or if they want to rape your family and kill you.
yeah.
We had the Cheshire Home invasion 20 minutes north of me where these guys came in and did exactly that, and the
Look
father.
at the Golden State Killer. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, you don't know, you don't have time to guess whether somebody is trying to steal something to pay for food or to trade for food, or
Mm,
is trying to come in because they're having a desire to do horrible things to you and your family. And so I think when you have that situation, I think that the fact that the benefit of the doubt is given to you, that you use deadly force only because you had to, because this person was breaking into your house, I think is good. I wish it didn't have to be a thing.
yeah.
Um, I wish people would just leave other people alone.
I
But
mean, here's an example people like to call upon. And there's even a viral clip that they'll meme. The guy will get the laser eyes at the end. So it's an older guy. He just has a 22 revolver. Two people are breaking in, and he responds. And as they're running away, he continues shooting and fatally kills the woman. And they are interviewing him on the news, and she's like, and they were running away. She's screaming, "I'm pregnant! Don't shoot me! Don't shoot me!" So I shot her anyway, and that's when they go like the alpha meme, you know.
yeah,
But
I've
it's like,
seen that.
then it's like one of those things where it's like that. I mean, like the laws are so loose in a lot of these states that one is totally like, and like people, there's the argument. It's like, oh, you never know. They could turn around and still have a gun if he like, retreated or
Yeah,
something.
so keep it raised, and if they turn around,
Yeah. That's just one of those
it's
things
training.
that's one
It's
of
all it
those
is, it's training.
one-off, because I
Mm,
I had to cater to a squirrel, but when you said you've heard arguments that like make you kind of feel a different way on it, that's just one of those anecdotal stories
Yeah,
that like I know that make me feel I don't know about it. But that's also the benefit of having a court as well.
yeah.
yeah. Well, and
Uh,
that's the standard of reasonability that often gets brought into these cases, where if a reasonable person was put in the same position, would they have made the same choice you did?
mhm.
And obviously, that I would think is fairly objective, subjective. Sorry, I get the two words
Subjective, yeah.
confused sometimes. It's silly. I'm 33 years old, but
Me
but
too.
that's. Are you 33?
Yeah, I think so. I stopped counting. 1991.
Oh, that's possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was 1990, but
Okay.
I think
Well, I'll
it's
be
possible.
turning
I don't know.
33.
Time's a construct. We
I'll
don't
be
know.
turning 33 in like a few months.
Nice. Well, happy almost birthday.
Yeah. Like I said, I stopped counting. It's like it's like I check in every 5, you know?
After 30, it doesn't matter. Yeah, you light the fires in your chimney once a winter, and that people know not to clean out your house and watch.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's all of these instances, and most mass shootings are this as well, right? They're not necessarily connected, except for like the neo-Nazi ones. Obviously, are mimetic and connected to each other and reference
Yeah.
each other and whatnot. Like the New Zealand shooter reference.
Yeah, the drawing,
Breivik.
White on the gun. There's just
Yeah,
a shooting
like
in
all of that
Jacksonville
sort of
that had
stuff.
white swastikas
Oh, that
painted
was
on the
feds.
gun.
Mm.
Oh yeah, that was the false flag.
That was
feds.
the feds. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why he killed himself, because
Yeah.
they can't, because they'd be it would be tortured out of him that he was a secret agent.
I don't
Well,
understand.
go
No,
on.
I'm sorry.
Well,
We just made a post about. Okay, I'll go and then you go.
go.
We just made a post about this. How in our state we had Nazis holding up a sign that said "Keep Connecticut White," and there
We
were
actually
7
talk
people.
about them in the last episode we just did
Did you?
that we released. Yep,
Awesome.
it's actually a big chunk of it's about those guys.
That's cool. Well, it's not cool, but I'm glad you guys talked about it. And somebody commented, or I forget if they commented or wrote it in our messages, but they said, like 5 out of 7 of them are feds, though, right? Like, you guys know this, right? And my first thought is like, you don't think Nazis protest? Like, you don't think 7 of them could get together? I mean, they literally had groups that would make whole.
I don't know. There's like 9 of them in existence.
I know. It's so weird to me that that people are just so blinded by whatever bias they have.
Also, you can research these people.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's the one that's the meme lords who have no hair on their legs where you are?
The
What?
National Socialist Network.
Yeah, one of them is like it says that he goes into public places filming himself meowing like a cat at people.
Mm-hmm. Sounds about right.
And that was like his secret
Whatever blows your
identity
hair back.
that I got. And he's
There
on
was,
TikTok being like a weird furry incel.
Cool.
Neat.
Epic.
So
There was 2
that'll
of
be in
those
there.
guys went to my gym for a little bit and then they got kicked out.
What did they have, like Nazi tattoos?
I don't think they have tattoos,
Some do.
but they're like
I show their
they're
tattoos
like
in this video too.
the main guys in this reject group.
Yeah.
Because like there's the base, which is like the main neo-Nazi group in Australia, and then these guys are the ones who they told to fuck off. And these guys were told to fuck off by the New Zealand shooter. That's how pathetic they are.
Wow.
And none of them can grow hair on anywhere on their body.
None of
I
them
show.
have hair on their
I
legs.
specifically do jump cuts
Yes,
into their bare
saw.
chest.
Maybe they shave, man. Maybe they shave their chest.
It's just very funny because people were
Superhero
saying
chest.
it was a false flag because they had no hair on their legs and they were there protesting with Posey Parker and all the TERFs against trans people and shit.
That's so funny.
So it's yeah, and all the TERFs were trying to distance themselves, even though there's photos and videos of them talking and shaking hands with these Nazis. Yeah, it's great.
That's amazing.
Mm.
I sometimes I have this thought that if I ever lost my job and my family left me and became just this person with infinite time on his hands and
Can I interrupt you for just 1 second?
Yes.
When you go to somebody's Instagram and it's just clearly a guy in his house and it's just him taking pictures of his dog, problem. That is a future domestic terrorist.
No, I don't agree with that at all, man. Before I had a kid, all I took pictures of were my dog. Well, no, actually,
there's this soap guy, and I did a background search. Do you remember this guy, Jack?
Yeah.
I do a background search on him. I find his Instagram, just an empty room, like the joke where it's like guys will have this setup and it's just like a chair and a TV. It's like that level shit, and I go back and I find his ex-wife is going off on saying that he's in the closet because this guy got discharged from the army because he said a bunch of racist shit online. This is just a random interaction I had with a guy on Twitter and it changed my life.
What? I'm never gonna look at dog pictures the same again.
You ruined Instagram for you.
Oh, dude, I just think of, dogs are so wholesome to me. So like when I'm the kind of guy that will go out of his way to walk up to a dog. If a person is within earshot of me, I will ask if I could pet their dog.
I support this.
Yeah, I've actually, so I was at work and I was in uniform and asked if I could pet this dog, but I didn't realize when I asked, I just went over and pet the dog. Like I didn't wait for a response really. And then as I walked away, my coworker was like, dude, what's wrong with you? And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, you didn't even say anything to the owner. Like you literally, he's like, you spoke to the dog, you pet the dog, and you walked away. You didn't even make eye contact with the owner once. I was like, oh, that's fucking weird. Like I probably think
what do you mean?
like,
Dog.
there's
a
even
dog.
acknowledge that he was there. So I look at somebody, I've got like, this guy's got a lot of dog photos, and I want to think that it's just wholesome, but it ends up being a neo-Nazi. I guess I won't be surprised either now. Thanks, John. I think what I was going to say is if my family left me and I had all this time on my hands, I would want to create like the second coming of Q, because I know that's how that started. Like just some guy coming up with some crazy conspiracies in his basement and getting a bunch of people to jump on board. But I would want to do it for like good things. Like I would want to create a conspiracy.
Oh, really?
We've been talking about this forever. We've wanted to make one forever.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Let's do this.
Wrap up. Just gun laws, obviously not going to affect white people as much as black people. In New York, there's a history of this. You look at handgun laws in New York City and stuff like that, the stop and frisk handgun laws. It's always going to be the lowest income, is always going to have the most crime. So if you just arrest more poor people, statistically,
you're gonna have less crime.
Statistically, crime has to go down. So why aren't we just putting the poors in prison is what I'm asking.
Well, that would be way too easy, and you can't make it look like that's what you want to do. Perfect example. So I, for the longest time, thought it was impossible to get your pistol permit in the city, in the 5 boroughs. And I was taking a class for work and met a guy from the city who told me that he had a pistol permit. And I was like, that's bullshit. It's illegal. And he said, no, it's not if you have $15,000, because that's how much it costs to hire a lawyer who will drag you through all the loopholes to essentially get it so that you're able to get one. Because you have to have an excuse essentially to say like, I need a gun for protection in the city in order for them to issue you one. Well, you did before the Bruin decision. I'm not sure how it works now, but that's what he did, because he had 15 grand and he got a permit to carry a gun in the city. And that is the prime example of same reason the NFA is bullshit. Same reason most gun control is bullshit, because if you have enough money and enough resources, you can get around it.
And why do you think that there's no mass shootings in a public area like New York City as compared to like always in Colorado?
I don't know if you're being sarcastic or...
No, I'm not. I'm being look at how often it is. It's always Colorado where you have like the military style weapon.
Like Aurora and...
Yeah, it's like it's certain states are more than others. We still had one in Buffalo here, but like, you would think that if you wanted to do a mass casualty incident, you would just go to the center of a city and just like al-qeada it.
Yeah, I know. And yeah,
I mean that's literally what al-qeada and Daesh do, is they go to the city center to do it.
That's, it's really interesting. I actually wish I had an answer for that. I feel like man, you have like petty crimes in cities, I feel like, and you do have gun crime, but not really mass shootings. And that's interesting that there isn't that crossover there. Do you have an answer? Are you asking me like rhetorically?
No, this is just one of those things where you look at like, I think there's like something to it where it's like, even if somebody wants to do that in New York, just the ability to get an assault rifle on the island is like fucking impossible to begin with. And I think if there's something where we want to look at gun control, not so much mass shootings, but if we look at like domestic violence incidents are going to be a lot more successful when guns are involved.
Yeah.
Not by successful, I mean murdering the spouse as well.
Yeah.
Success,
not like in a good way.
Because I was comparing it to the second stat, which is like suicide being more successful.
Yeah.
Right. When they're done with guns. And this is why men are have killed themselves more, is because they're more likely to use a gun. and they're more
Women are more likely
successful
to
for
use
doing
pills,
it.
which are
So they talk about like, oh, it's a mental health issue, which mass shootings are something completely different. I think domestic violence and suicide are more in that mental health range, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is, how do you even address this?
Yeah. Thinking back on the mass shooting question, I do, because it's eating at me now. I think mass shootings. So if you look, there's gun crime in major metropolitan cities, but they're crimes of opportunity and they're crimes of necessity. It's gang crime. It's theft. It's armed robbery. It's not like it's if it's a murder, it's mostly like gang murders or domestic incidents like that. Mass shootings to me feel like more of an ideological crime, and I feel like
That's why we call it crimes against society.
yeah.
Even though that means something completely different in the terms of the law, we've reclaimed the word and we're saying it's a crime against society because it
I
just
like
makes
it.
sense. Because
Yeah.
it explains like when China, they go and stab school children, right? They like barricade the school and stab the children because they know they can kill the most there.
Exactly. I don't think that. I think if somebody wanted to go somewhere and just kill as many people as possible, I think it would be easy for them to pick a place in the country and do so, because you can drive states over with a gun and just go to like a baseball game. And you don't even have to get inside past the metal detectors. If you've ever been to a baseball game, there's plenty of people outside.
There has been plenty of other incidents. I saw one the other day. It was a high school football game.
Yeah. Yes. It just recently happened, right? It was like 3 people got killed, but I actually think that was a result of like a former conflict.
Yeah, and so still.
Yeah. But I think that
it is strange that it doesn't happen in the middle of New York City.
Yeah, I think that it is,
or it does.
Yeah, or it does, and yeah, it is very strange. I wish there was that's something I want to look deeper into, because you would think with as much opportunities as someone would have to inflict as much damage as possible, that big cities would
There
be
actually
more prone to
there was one
shootings.
on the subway and he was caught by a Syrian immigrant. Remember
Yeah.
that one? It was
Yeah, but that's rare in
Yeah,
in
and
the
it was
city,
a
especially the
handgun as
subway
well.
where everybody's you're packed in like a sardine can. You'd think that would be, that's a target rich environment.
Especially like even if like my theory where I said bombings will happen if you ban guns. No bombings on those subways.
Yeah.
So why is it certain parts of the country are more prone to these crimes against society than other parts of the country?
We did see the Boston bombing, but that that
wasn't that also like al-qeada?
It was. Well, they took credit. They
That's what I'm saying. When you
them.
see them, and also like for example, the Tokyo subway attack, that was like a cult terrorist group. It wasn't like just somebody who was trying to fight back against society.
Exactly. It wasn't
when these types of like there was somebody shot up a 4th of July parade. That's something where you could plan for people to be in one location. But a lot of these times, you'll see like a lot of times, especially if it's at a convenience store or something like that, those people had been planning to do shootings at a later date. They already had it in their mind of over a year ahead. They just got fed up at that time. And they just said, you know what, today's the day. And they went out and they just tried to kill a few people and get like 3 at like a supermarket.
Yeah.
Although that being said, the truck attacks and stuff, the parade attacks where they're driving cars through crowds,
that's new.
That could be classified as the same thing.
It is.
Yeah, but I think we classify mass shootings into 3 categories, right? It's just the random ones. Yeah, the random ones, the crimes against society, which are the mass shootings, and then the mimetic shootings, which are like the neo-Nazi ones.
Yeah, when they paint their guns and stuff.
Mm.
But also the most recent one in Jacksonville, I think, was both. I think this. Yeah, he definitely had the mimetic element because he tried to shittily paint his gun white and stuff like that. Did the manifesto thing and had all the call signs there. And it's not like there's another one that killed himself, because I was talking to Militant Wire about it, being like, when I was like, it's rare that they kill themselves at the end of these types of attacks. They normally want to be taken alive to prove a point.
Yeah.
Which is different, because normally when it's like the crimes against society, they almost always are going to end in suicide.
Yeah, whether it's by themselves or suicide by cop.
It was very interesting.
Like the Vegas one. The Vegas one wasn't a terrorist attack, even though it killed a lot of people. But this So this one with the Jacksonville thing, it was a terrorist attack, but he still killed himself, which is weird.
Well, one thing that people don't realize is that in order for something to be classified as terrorism, it has to be with the goal to further a political ideology.
Yeah, and that's why as soon as you paint the swastikas on your gun and you call attention to the Christchurch shooter, it's a terrorist attack.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's yeah. Fun topic.
Yeah. Well, it's
I was waiting for one to get really dark with this because we've been very like queer and positive about guns for the last two. So anyway, why don't you promote your podcast to sign out here?
Yeah, go for it.
Oh,
and
man.
Whatever you want to promote, plug some stuff.
Well, I am the owner of A Better Way 2A, and really makes me personally happy when you come and follow the page. We've been at 9,994 followers for the past week. It goes up to like 98 and then 95 and then 96 and then 91. I'm just waiting to get to 10K because we're going to do a super cool giveaway. Giving away a KE Arms CDR rifle. It's their community defense rifle with a lead and steel Promethean optic, and it's going to be super dope. A Better Way 2A podcast. We talk about guns. We sometimes talk about things that don't involve guns, trying to make the gun community better, gun culture, all that fun stuff. And I think it's super dope. Plus, you get to listen to myself and Andrew, who is way funnier than me, talk. And we have a good time. We'll have to have you guys on the show.
Yeah, probably me because Jack is not adaptable to being across the world and upside down.
Well, John, what time zone are you in? I was going to ask that.
Oh, I'm Eastern.
Oh, so we're at least in the same time zone.
Yeah, but like I'm like an immortal deity. I'm ethereal. Like there's only
You're pure energy.
There's only certain times where like I need to be asleep, and like as between
3 and 4 a.m.